So how did you get into acting?
How do I think it's always something that I've just kind of done. I think the earliest memory of doing anything was doing like a primary school play. I think the first one I remember was sort of like we did Robin Hood or something like that, and I was the sheriff of Nottingham. And I remember doing it, and that was the very first time that I ever got a laugh from an audience. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. What is this? What new emotion? What new feeling is this that I'm suddenly experiencing? And that was quite something. So I think that's probably the thing that ignited, or at least the tinder was ignited back then. But I didn't know it was a job. I didn't know you could actually do this ridiculous thing, as my daughters would say, dressing up and putting on silly voices. I didn't think that was a thing. I just thought it was something like a hobby. So then, as you know, I've always enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed stories and telling stories, and especially funny things. And then as you kind of get older, you suddenly do realize, especially when you start watching movies, like proper movies, like, you know, Scorsese or, you know, those kind of things, The Godfather, those kind of things. You kind of think, wow, this is a real thing. This is what adults actually do. Like, adults get up and they go and they do this, and this is work. And that was kind of the birth of it. So it was that kind of first laugh in primary school, and then those moments where you're sitting watching great cinema. For me, it was great cinema, classic cinema, as well as things like Ealing comedies. My father didn't watch anything that wasn't black and white. So he would rigidly only watch that, and probably only things made up to about 1948. Other than that, he had no interest. So all the Ealing comedies, those kind of Gainsborough comedies, all that era was kind of my education. And I think it just kind of seeps into your DNA as it's always on the background, it's always on repeat. You begin to kind of learn the rhythms of certain gags and how they're said, and just what makes something funny and not funny, and all those little kind of things that you don't pay any attention to, but they kind of all come in. So I think it was all those sort of layerings of things that's probably when it was kind of born from just an idea, a germ of an idea, to suddenly being something that, oh, you could actually do this. There is a chance, thin as it may be, but there is a chance that this could be something that you could go on and do.
So do you think part of the motivation was like getting any sort of like emotional reaction from an audience, like whether that's in person or behind a screen?
I think it certainly plays a part. Like, I grew up in a very small village, basically, you know, in the middle of nowhere, like the unfashionable end of nowhere, as we used to say. As you know, there was just nothing really going on, and so the idea that you could do something beyond the bounds of, you know, the hills and the kind of farmland that were around you was something that was kind of totally alien, totally bizarre, that you would even think to do something that wasn't kind of just the norm job that all your other mates did, their parents did. The idea of suddenly doing something out of the ordinary was something very, very different, and very kind of looked upon as if, wow, this is, who the hell do you think you are? Wow, that's just the oddest thing I've ever heard. But I think exactly as you're saying, those little reactions, and just the love of telling stories. I just like telling a story, and I think even back then, I think maybe, you know, I could tell a good story, a funny story. But I could tell a good story, and there's something really kind of intrinsically brilliant and lovely about somebody telling you a good story. If someone can do it well and really engage you, and read the room about, oh, you like this or you don't like this, or this is hitting more, so I'll push that more and leave that, then it's a wonderful thing. I could sit for hours and someone just tell me a story. You know, if they can do it well, then great. And I think that was the thing. I could tell a funny story, and people seem to be interested in it. And I think, and then to have that reaction for the very first time, and then to be able to kind of know in a way of kind of, oh, okay, I could maybe move this around and shift it about, and all that was revelatory. It really was. And that's what sent me down this slippery slope.
Yeah, that's right. So I wanted to ask about Toast of London.
Yeah.
And obviously you do the scenes in the recording studios where you wear just those insane outfits. What was it like wearing those, like, each different episode?
Oh, it was brilliant. I mean, you would slightly live in fear as well of what Matt would suddenly bring in and say, "You're wearing this today," and you think, "Oh God, are you absolutely serious?" I mean, that's fantastic, and that was the day that we had some guest stars in. And you think, God, the first time people are going to see me is dressed like this, and you want to make a good impression, you're dressed like a load of chips. So that was good. It was Larry David, actually. That was the day that Larry David was in. You kind of think, I really want to make a good impression for the godfather of modern comedy. But no, here I am, dressed as chips.
Do you have a standout favourite of those outfits, if you can remember?
Oh, standout favourite. Do I have a standout favourite? No. I quite like Downie when he wears shorts. There was the scene, I think it was in season 2 maybe, where I'm carrying the Commonwealth game torch, and that's the first time, I think it's that episode as well, it's the first time you see Clem and I's legs. So that was fun, just to kind of, and obviously you're putting the most sort of like Sebastian Coe shortest of shorty shorts to then run round North London, which is like, thanks for that, that's great. But that was fun. And I was given a hat. That's actually really good. I was given a hat which was a yellow beret, which was like a breakfast, and it had a full thing, and it was designed. I put it up on Twitter and said, and it was from something like Bunty magazine in 1964 or something. Right. About, look, you can make these wonderful breakfast berets if you want. And I put it up going, this is amazing, isn't it? And this woman, this extraordinary woman in America said, I can make that. I crochet, I'll make that. So she made it. And then I brought it into Matt and said, can I wear this? He went, absolutely. It's totally ridiculous. So I ended up wearing this wonderful, which I still have, it's somewhere around, breakfast beret, which is that was a particular favorite.
Yeah. Do you have any techniques to try and stop yourself laughing in, I guess, any comedic show? But I think especially in those scenes, because I think part of why it's so funny is that you and Clem act as if what you're doing is normal, when you're like obviously the most ridiculous part, I think. It's the hardest, it's possibly the hardest thing that I've done in my professional career. Oh, really? Try and just remain, because it's ridiculous and it's funny and they perform it so brilliantly, and you get to be so incredibly close to it, and you're just thinking, well, this is just brilliant. This is just funny. It's just funny and it's brilliant, and they're doing, and they really invest. Matt really invests in the seriousness of it, and the seriousness is that thing. If you want to be funny, you don't play funny. You play serious, and it's the funny in the situation that comes out in your absolute seriousness. So we're doing the same thing. We're just on the receiving end and just being arseholes and just pushing and pushing and pushing. But it's really difficult. There are moments, because all those scenes are pretty much done together. And so usually, for the first 3 series anyway, we were like trapped in a dark room for like 3 or 4 days at a time. We barely see daylight. So you then got faced with some of the most ridiculous things you've ever seen. And you just think, I'm sorry. I've got to go and stand outside because I can't deal with this. But the only sort of techniques, the only sort of ways that I've found to really kind of get through that is you've just got to kind of just dull your entire senses down. Just don't even engage in things. Just almost make yourself as dull as you can make yourself, so that nothing is funny to you. You're as cynical as they come, and just keep kind of telling yourself, because if you start corpsing, that's it. You've lost 20 minutes, because if you go, we all start going, because you just suddenly realize just how ridiculous it is. And so you've got to try and temper that. No, just got to think about Arsenal in the 80s or something. Just really push down emotion as far as you can, and hope that you can get through it. Kind of on that, but do you think you have any techniques for getting into character, or at least separating like maybe like a serious character with a comedic character?
Yeah, there are you know, there are sort of tried and tested ways. Costume is a big one,
Right.
because obviously, you know, if you're, there's like the classic things, if you're doing Shakespeare, you can't do Shakespeare in trainers. You know, you got to kind of put the shoes on, the sort of boots, and kind of, okay, it makes you kind of stand a certain way, it makes you kind of feel a certain way. And it's something very similar with comedy as well, is just kind of like the environment. The good thing about doing TV is you are literally in the environment where the character is supposed to kind of live and function and breathe. So that's really, really useful. And then costume really helps. And costume, because it makes you kind of stand a certain way, and then you'll find little things. Oh, okay, well, if he stands like this or he moves like that, then he might talk a certain way, or his vocal rhythm will change in a certain thing. And you can find funny out of that by kind of moving things around and not talking in the same way that you would. So all of these little things kind of bring character together. You can kind of start with not a blank sheet, but you kind of bring all these little bits in.
Do you tend to improvise a lot? I think like, I guess in more like comedic ways, because I guess it's harder to do that in a more dramatic show.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem to frown on comedic improvisations during. I find it very, very strange there. But anyway, no, something like Toast, you can have ideas for certain things, but a lot of it is scripted, and a lot of it's already there. Like, you don't really need to. Like, it's so well done and so well crafted. You just need to find that place to put yourself, and then it takes off. I mean, yeah, there's been other series I've worked on where it's actively encouraged, as if to say, okay, well, look, you know the characters so well, and if it's a bit more just kind of conversational comedy rather than more surreal and absurdist like Toast is, then yeah, you can definitely, and it's wanted, yeah, you can absolutely sort of play around and kind of think, oh, actually, if we did this, or we did this, or we did this, you can certainly find it. And then there's things like Upstart Crow, which is just kind of very crafted, and the words are the words, and that's what it is, you know, that. But again, that's brilliantly written and brilliantly crafted. So there always is no need. You think, well, I'll just play it. I'll play it as it stands, and it will do the work for you. You don't have to push it too much. You can just say the words in the right way, and it's funny. And that's you know, that's a joy. You know, you don't have to do anything, but then you have to kind of fight your instinct to kind of go, oh, I could do this, this, this. No, you don't have to. You can just pull it back and, you know, let it play.
Yeah, I spoke to Doc Brown, and he said that one thing that he noticed about comedy, and I was wondering if you've noticed this, is that a lot of the time, if it's like a very scripted comedy and you do a lot of takes, the humor kind of fades, like it becomes less funny. Do you find that when you're filming a comedy?
It can do. I mean, luckily with things like Upstart Crow, because I was in front of a live audience, you only really would do maybe 2 or 3 passes at it, because you've rehearsed it, and you've found all the little kind of nuance to it as well. And then as soon as you bring in an audience, that kind of ups your game anyway, because suddenly you're in front of an audience and you kind of really want to kind of give it for them as well, and that makes it fresher as well, because even though you've rehearsed it for a week, you're suddenly in front of an audience, which gives it a whole new thing. There are people laughing in places you thought, well, that's not funny. This bit's funny, but this bit isn't funny, and they'll laugh at this, and they'll still laugh at this, but they'll laugh earlier. So that changes everything around. It can do, but that's kind of part of the job. Is not letting it get stale. Is okay. It's dipping here. How can we push on and push through and keep those funnies going? And that's part of the art. That's the kind of technical part of the art as well, is not just is finding the funny or finding what's good, and then being able to maintain that and kind of digging it up if you have to, or, you know, whatever technique one uses. But yeah, you know, that's the you know, that's the business in the show, I guess. Yeah,
that's fair enough. Do you have a way of dealing with any negativity you might get towards a performance, like from a review or just a comment or anything?
I try not to read reviews or anything else like that. If I'm doing something on stage or something is long running, you just think, God, if I read that after like second night and you've got 3 months of this, it would just be absolute murder. So ignore that. Just, it's that thing of just play your games. But with something like theatre, just play your game, and if you know it's good, then you do what you do. I think that's the best thing to do. Anything with negativity, the thing is with comedy is it's so subjective. If you don't find it funny, you'll just turn it off. You won't give it time. Like a drama, like say Game of Thrones or any kind of big drama, even if you don't like it, you will go, okay, well, let's give this a few episodes and just see how it beds in. It might get better. You hear that even with something like Breaking Bad. You got to get through the first series and then it really takes off. You won't do that with comedy. You will literally give it that short amount of time, and if it doesn't hit, because it is so subjective and so personal, then you'll just go, no, I don't like it, it's not funny. And I've had people come up to me in the street, as much as people come up and say, I absolutely adore, it's hilarious, you're hilarious, the whole thing is hilarious, you're brilliant, and everything's brilliant. You'll have people come up to you and go, what the fuck was that? And you'll go, what? Yeah, it's not funny. That's not funny. Why would you do that? It's not funny. And you think, oh, I'm sorry, like I've really offended you. It's like, it's just a TV program. But it's so sort of personal that people kind of get excited. I'm going to sit down. This is said to be funny. People have said it's funny. I'm sitting down and I don't find it funny. How dare you bring that into my house? You unfunny shit. It's such an interesting thing. But so you just got to go, well, some people find things funny, certain things, some people just don't. It's just one of those things, So you just got to go, okay, well, you didn't find it funny, but that's fine. That's fine. This person did, and many others do, so that's fine. And you walk on.
I guess kind of on that, but do you find that the industry, just in general, like impacts your mental health, whether that's positively or negatively?
It can do, because it's a stressful business. And comedy is probably the most stressful of all, because you're constantly because it is all about reaction. You're not just kind of like doing a scene. Well, you could be doing a very, dramatic scene, and obviously that has its pitfalls as well. If it's very dramatic, that can certainly affect your mental health, and then how you kind of decompress from that is very important. But comedy is you're constantly on, and you're looking for that validation all the time. And it's very obvious the validation is because somebody laughs. And someone gives you that immediate feedback of going, that works, that doesn't work. And so you're constantly on that look for things. I read a lot, as you can say. So, I escape into different worlds.
Right.
Into kind of removing myself. Okay, well, that was what that is. And now I'm in this world. And that calms and kind of takes away those anxieties that just naturally come. One is an actor. I don't think there's an actor on the planet that isn't anxious and full of self-doubt and imposter syndromes and all sorts of different things. And it is vitally important to be able to find what works for you in however that is, in just taking a step back, because it is, a brutal industry, or it can be. And so you do need something that just kind of takes you away, be that, Minecraft, or be that painting or reading or writing or something, but something that isn't to do with what you're doing. I think is really important. I walk a lot. I'm a big walker, and I found that has really helped as well, just kind of getting out in nature and just getting away from everything, and just kind of almost just pootling, being in nature, being in trees, like the Japanese say, forest bathing and that kind of thing. And I find that really centering and just a lot more calming to then approach the work again, or even just my family, because that can be a nightmare.
That's good that you've got like techniques to kind of just step away and I guess like refocus. It's like you maybe have the luxury of being able to turn roles down. So do you have anything in particular you maybe look for when you say yes to a role?
Yeah, I like things that just pique my interest, or it's a character that I haven't done, and it's a script that's really interesting or fresh. I have certain sort of, I like surrealist stuff. I like, the weird and the wonderful. But then having said that, if I'm doing something that is modern day naturalistic, you think, well, is it a good story? It goes back to story again. It always goes back to stories. Is it a good story? And is it well told? As you can get really good stories that are badly told, and you can get some dreadful stories that are beautifully told. But if you can get the marriage of both of that together, then you think, okay. And you kind of know, it's kind of like when you're walking into a room and there's certain people, everyone makes a snap judgment call on, oh, do I like this person or do I not? And then it may sort of change as the thing goes on. But you've got to listen to instinct of looking through something, or just kind of a vibe. It all sounds very ethereal, but you kind of get a vibe off something. And if you kind of think, oh, okay, do you know what, it's like walking in, like they say, when you kind of walk into a house and you picture where, the bed will go there, and the table will go there. I see the chairs and my stuff on the walls. You're kind of doing the same with a script. So if you can picture yourself going, oh yeah, I can kind of see maybe it's like this and a bit like this, and I could do this or this or this, then you know, oh, okay, this is something, because I'm already beginning to play. I'm already beginning to kind of find the things in it that could be fun to do. And if you don't do that, if you're just reading it going, oh God, then ignore, just leave it. Thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah. Has there ever been a role that you've maybe turned down and then regretted after?
No, thankfully, no, there hasn't. Okay. Which is a good thing. I usually say yes to most things. I think that's probably where we're going with this. But no, there hasn't. There's certainly been projects that you think, oh God, that's going to be, and it's going to be good. Like something's going to be really good. You can just sense it. I think, yeah, that would be good. Or the part. That's it. It's sometimes you'll get offered a part, or you'll go up for a part, and you think, I don't like the part very much. There isn't much in it, or I don't gel with the character. There's something about the character that I just can't find the way in some way. But you'll look at the project and go, but this is going to be an awesome project. This is going to be something quite brilliant. And more often than not, you're right. There are other times, of course, where you're totally wrong, where your instinct goes, well, I really like it, but you're that minority of going, yes, but you really like it. Yeah. But everybody else hates it. Everybody else thinks this is an absolute pig swill of a project. But that's just, it's just one of those things. But yeah, so there's certainly been projects I've kind of gone, if I was only that part. If they would offer me that part, I'd be all over it. But this one, I'm not too sure.
I guess it must be a weird judgment, because you don't know where it could go, or like how it will be perceived by audiences.
Yeah. There's no rule book. There's just zero that you can have the best director, best DOP, best writer, best cut. You can have the best of everything, and it can still be dreadful. Yeah, it's just one of those things. And there are certain things as well, like small projects where you kind of go, I really like this script, and there's a lot of goodwill, and there's some nice people attached, and everyone's really nice. Yeah, this could just be like a fun little project, and those are the ones that kind of take off. Toast in a funny kind of way was a little like that. Like, we did the pilot, and I just assumed, oh, okay, we're just going to be doing the pilot. Like, I don't think our characters were meant to go on more than just the pilot, or maybe a few episodes in the first series, and that was kind of it. But you read it and kind of went, well, I would watch this, and that's a big thing of going, well, if I would watch it, then I should obviously do it. But I didn't think of it more than beyond that. I certainly didn't expect that it would become the sort of cult hit that it has. It was just a great fun script, great fun people. You're working with good people that know exactly what they're doing, and you think, yeah, this will be fun. This will be good fun. But you don't expect it to be what it becomes.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Do you have a standout experience, whether it be bad or good, of being on set in anything, I guess?
There are so many moments where you can either, for good and bad, where you will catch yourself and go, well, this is just ridiculous. Like being in the cloud forests of Costa Rica doing Paddington was quite something, because they built all those tree walkways and the big kind of hut that hangs in the tree. They built all that, and there's a lot of other little bits of the marmalade glade, as they called it, that were all CGI. You kind of standing there going, this is wonderful, this is great. You're in this cloud forest in Costa Rica finding Paddington Bear. You think, well, that's quite fun. And there are, great moments like that. And there are small moments as well where you kind of walk into the first day on a new project and you look around and you go, fucking hell, there's some fucking good people here. My God. And you think, I've really got to raise my game. But it's so exciting because you're working with people that have been childhood heroes, comedy heroes, or just, great actors that you just think, God, they really know their shit. They are really good. I'm in a scene with them, and that's really exciting. And that's really thrilling, because that's kind of what you wanted to do. You want to work with people who are brilliant, and hopefully you can kind of come up to that, and the scene and the project can be great.
Yeah.
There are other things as well where I remember, as horror stories, I remember doing a show where it was mid-January in Northern England, and they said, right, today we're going to be doing the fight sequence on the rope bridge over the river, and they had to crack the ice off the top of this lake, and they were like, no, it'll be fine, we'll put a dry suit on, you'll be fine. So then the sequence is we have to kind of come along, we kind of fight, and then we fall into the river, and it was the coldest, like instantly, the suit was too big, you instantly covered in cold water. There was a lot of kind of grazing land, so the whole thing smelt of like cow shit. Yeah. And you're kind of breathing it in, and there was enormous amounts of silt, so you're kind of having to kind of pull your feet up constantly. And then the next bit was like, great, okay, we'll try and be quick. So what we want you to do is, if you could just duck down under the water, wait till the bubbles have kind of stopped, and then you come up. And you think, are you absolutely serious? It's mid-January, pretty much snowing, and we're doing that. And I have never been so ill in my life as after that. I must have got like mild hypothermia or something. I mean, I was walking across, fields of frosted grass, barefoot, covered in twigs and kind of conker burrs. I didn't feel a thing. There was like blocks of ice. Yeah. That was pretty horrendous to say the least. And there's been other things as well where they say, do you mind being pushed in front of this Rottweiler? And things like that. You're going, that's quite an aggressive looking dog, and you're telling it to be aggressive. That's the point of the scene, is this dog is very aggressive to me. And the guy who owns the dog has been saying, that's the guy you got to shout at. And then you want me to leap at the dog. I don't know about this. Call me old fashioned, but I think I might be savage. There's little things like that. But, they work out fine in the end. Apart from being pushed in a river, that was horrendous. Apart from that, it all works out in the end.
Oh, that's good. You mentioned how, sometimes you'll walk onto set and there'll be like people that are like your heroes. Is there anyone within the industry that you would like to work with, or like to work with again, that you've already worked with?
Oh, there are just loads. There are so many just brilliant actors. Like, it was such a thrill to work with Harry Enfield, because I grew up with Harry Enfield. I grew up watching Loads of Money and Stavros and all those kind of classic things that were on in the 80s, and suddenly you're in the same room with Harry Enfield, and that's quite something to go, oh wow, because you were a massive comedy hero. And even things like, I did a little bit on Comic Relief. We did a toast sketch on Comic Relief, and I remember Matt saying, oh, just watch this, and it was, there was Vic and Bob, so this is a Vic and Bob rehearsal, and they were just, and you just kind of sit in the room and go, it's Vic and Bob. Like, these are comedy icons. They are unique and extraordinary, and you're in the same room and you're watching things that are just behind the curtain that you never thought in a million years. You know, you would be quoting, you know, even like when we're doing Upstart Crow again, you know, me and Rob, who plays bottom, would stand in a corner and you'd kind of quote something and go, oh my God, that's a Blackadder quote. And it's from the guy who's sitting over there. He wrote that. And I thought, because you just said it in a playground as a kid, you just kind of was, you know, if you ever got, I remember driving with my dad, it would go anywhere and you'd open up a map and go, God, it's a barren, featureless desert out there. They go, it's on the other side, sir. And you go, oh, right, yes, and turn the map over. And you go, well, that's Blackadder Goes Forth. And the guy that wrote that is sitting over there. And that's really quite strange and wonderful and brilliant. And that kind of circle of things is the joy of the business. You know, you're working with extraordinary things that have kind of formed you and your kind of sensibilities and comic sensibilities and what you like and what you don't like, and you're then working with the creators of that is quite it's quite extraordinary.
That does sound quite surreal to be able to do that.
Yeah, it really is, and it's amazing, and you thrive off it because you kind of think, show me, teach me, you are brilliant at what you do. I want to kind of watch you and kind of work, you know, just I want to see what you're doing. How are you doing? How is that funny? How have you made that funny? I read it and you've made it incredibly funny. There's a brilliant Rick Mail quote of him doing The New Statesman, and he has a line that is just no. And he said, I can get 3 laughs out of this. And you think, well, how can you do that? He said, well, you know, how I come in and I'll give the guy will say his line and I'll give the guy a look and that'll be the first laugh. Then I'll say the line and you get the second laugh. And then I'll do a little something after it and that'll get the third laugh. And you think, okay, well then do it. And you watch it and he does. And you think, that's craftsmanship. That's just kind of natural ability and craftsmanship. And, you know, you just sit back and go, kudos, my friend. Well done. Well done.